7-year-old girl tells a judge the truth about her father, then this happened. It was a gray morning, and the air was thick with anticipation as people filed into the courtroom, their hushed murmurs creating a low, static-like buzz. The courtroom itself was unremarkable: polished wooden benches, a gavel resting silently on the judge's desk. But what unfolded that day was anything but ordinary. In the defendant's seat sat a man, weathered but dignified, with a look that spoke of 4 long years spent waiting for justice. His name was Mark Carter, a 39-year-old father, husband, and once a respected pillar of his community. Before his life was turned upside down, Mark had been falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit, a robbery gone wrong that ended in tragedy. It was a case of mistaken identity, they said. He had always maintained his innocence, but the system had failed him, sending him to prison while his family struggled to survive. Beside him sat his wife, Jasmine, her eyes brimming with tears that threatened to fall, as they had countless times over the past 4 years. 4 birthdays missed, 4 Christmas mornings where their daughter, Ava, had asked why her daddy wasn't coming home. Ava was 7 now, a little girl with big brown eyes who had spent days quietly sitting at the back of the courtroom, watching and waiting. But today, Ava was no longer content to remain silent. As Judge Elaine Monroe, a stern but fair woman, prepared to move the hearing forward, Ava stood. Her small frame seemed to grow as she cleared her throat. The room fell silent, and every eye turned to the child who had just done the unthinkable. "Your Honor," Ava began, her voice trembling but determined, "can I say something?" The judge, caught off guard but intrigued, motioned for Ava to approach. Her tiny shoes echoed against the cold, hard floor as she walked to the bench, clutching her favorite stuffed bear tightly. Jasmine tried to stop her, whispering for her to sit back down, but Ava was undeterred. She was on a mission. Looking up at Judge Monroe, Ava said, "My daddy didn't do it. He's not a bad man. He's my hero." The courtroom was so silent you could hear a pin drop. The judge leaned forward, her expression softening. "Why do you believe that, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Ava gripped her bear tighter. "Because my daddy always tells me to tell the truth, and he told me he didn't do it. I believe him. Don't you?" Mark's eyes filled with tears as he watched his daughter stand up for him in a way no one else ever had. Jasmine began sobbing quietly, and even the courtroom clerk dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. But Ava wasn't finished. "We don't have him at home anymore," she said, her voice quivering. "Mommy cries every night. I cry too. But Daddy always says to be strong, and he says the truth always wins." She looked directly at the judge, her gaze unwavering. "Can you please help us? Please?" Judge Monroe sat back in her chair, visibly moved. It wasn't every day that a 7-year-old broke through the cold machinery of the justice system with nothing but the truth and a heartfelt plea. But it was Ava's next words that changed everything. "I prayed every night for 4 years," she said softly. "I prayed for someone to listen. Will you listen?" The judge, fighting back her own tears, nodded. "I'm listening," she said. What happened next shocked everyone. The judge ordered an immediate review of the evidence, something that hadn't been done in 4 long years. Within hours, a single piece of overlooked surveillance footage came to light. Though blurry, it was clear enough to identify the real perpetrator, a man with a similar build to Mark, committing the crime while Mark was miles away at work. The oversight was devastating: a clerical error, a rush to judgment, and a system that had failed at every turn. Furious, Judge Monroe ordered Mark's immediate release and launched an investigation into how such a grave mistake could have happened. As Mark walked out of the courtroom a free man, he dropped to his knees and hugged Ava tightly, as though he'd never let her go. The aftermath was explosive. Mark filed a $20 million lawsuit against the state, not just for the 4 years he had lost, but for the emotional trauma inflicted on his family. He spoke openly about the pain of being separated from his wife and daughter, about the nights he lay awake in his prison cell wondering if the truth would ever come out. But Mark didn't stop there. He used his story to advocate for others wrongfully convicted, those who didn't have a 7-year-old angel to plead their case. His fight for justice became a rallying cry, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of truth. As for Ava, she became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the smallest voices can make the biggest impact. In the end, it wasn't just the evidence that set Mark free. It was the courage of a little girl who refused to stop believing in her father and dared to speak up in a world that often silences the innocent. Because sometimes, all it takes is one voice to change everything.